Welcome back to Switch of South Africa. I'm Nicky Nash as always, and today you join me inside this very beautiful Nissan Navara Pro-2X, right? Pro-2X. So this vehicle, the engine capacity is a 2.5 liter engine, produces 140 kilowatts, 450 Newton meters of torque through a 7-speed automatic gearbox. Now, before we talk about the drive of the vehicle, let's talk about how it looks. This vehicle definitely has to be the best looking Bakkie out there right now in the market. For me personally, this is a very beautiful Bakkie. It has to be number one on my list. And the color of this specific one, this gray, I'm not too sure what type of gray it is, but I'll put it, you should be seeing it on the screen right now. But this vehicle looks very beautiful. For Bakkie, it turns a lot of heads. You'd say you're in a supercar when driving this vehicle because of the look of the vehicle. It looks very beautiful. This color pops, especially against the sun. It pops really well. Nissan really did the most. Let's talk about something that a lot of motoring journalists have been talking about within this vehicle, and it has to be the suspension. Almost every motoring journalist that I've seen that has had this car on test or this Bakkie on test before me, something they used to speak about the most, it was the suspension of the vehicle. They'll say this is the best suspension you could find in a Bakkie, and rightfully so, they're correct. The suspension of this Bakkie is to die for. This Bakkie really does feel very good. It doesn't feel like a Bakkie. The only time you remember that you're in a Bakkie is when you're parking, or when you're doing movements of 20 k's or less. That's when you know, oh yeah, by the way, I'm in a Bakkie. But on highway cruising, the suspension handles bumps so smoothly. It's not a hard ride. It's a very smooth ride. There's over humps like this as well. For example, these humps are it's very beautiful. It goes over humps smoothly. It doesn't feel like a Bakkie. That's something that I can't comprehend how Nissan have managed the suspension of this vehicle. And another thing is that this vehicle handles very well on the highway. Your 120 doesn't feel like a 120, if that makes sense. Yeah, so Nissan really did the most in regards to suspension of this vehicle. Moving on to the next thing about this vehicle, which I really do like, is the 7-speed automatic gearbox. The gearbox in this vehicle is to die for, honestly. I like it. I've experienced other gearboxes of Bakkies. There's a 6-speed in the Toyota Hilux. There's the 10-speed that you get in the Fords, and surprisingly, for me personally, this has to be my favorite, mainly because every gear change you feel it, and the gear change comes with power. This vehicle, when it goes into the next gear, it's when the power is there. Something that I don't like, that I actually need to address in this vehicle with regards to the gearbox, is that, for example, when you're overtaking and you drive and it's changing for you, it doesn't really know which gear to go to. Let me kind of explain why I'm saying that. It tends to hold on to a gear for way too long. So if I'm overtaking and then I'm in gear 4, it will hold on to gear 4, like it'll pull with gear 4. It'll go to the red line, which is like around 4.5, approaching 5,000. It'll hold it, and then change. And by the time it's holding, the power or the torque is already out of the equation. So when it changes, that's when the power and the torque come back. So for me, it changes way too late for my liking. So when I was overtaking this vehicle, I just pop into manual and then I early shifted myself, because when you early shift, it stays in the torque range, so around 3,000, 2,000. When you change it, when it comes back there, it's torque, it's power, so you feel the power. And when it goes into the next gear, it's literally power on power on power. So that's what I like about this vehicle. It handles that very well. So yeah, my only fault, it has to be with it hanging on to a gear for way too long. But once it gets the right gear, it gets going. This Bakkie is quite fast for a Bakkie that's 140 kilowatts. It feels faster than most Bakkies have driven. It feels faster. I'm not saying it is, but it does feel faster. Maybe it's because of the gearbox. But yeah, I like it. So now, because we've spoken about how the car feels to drive and how the car looks, it's time to speak about the interior of the vehicle. Interior of the vehicle, you get 4 USB ports. 3 are normal USB ports. The other one is a Type-C fast charging USB port. we're at that segment where I talk about 3 things I like, 3 things I don't like, and we always start with the what, the side, with the bad. So now with the bad, let's get it. Number 1 that I don't like of this vehicle, it has to be the interior of the vehicle. I don't like how there is a lot of plastic within the vehicle, but other than that, the interior is not too bad, but I don't like it. That is something that I don't like. 2 that I don't like about this vehicle, there isn't a number 2 and there isn't a number 3, and I'll explain why. Because this vehicle is just the perfect all-rounder to a point where I don't have any fault with the vehicle. So there's nothing that I'm gonna pick and say I don't like in this vehicle. So there is no number 2 and number 3. So now let's move on to the good things I like about the vehicle. There's plenty of that. 1, let's talk about the look of the vehicle. It has to be my number 1. I like the look of the vehicle. It looks very beautiful, especially in this color. It looks very beautiful. 2, it has to be the suspension. This car handles very well with the suspension. The handling of the vehicle is just to die for. 3, it has to be the gearbox. The 7-speed gearbox, it just does something to me. This gearbox is in this Bakkie is literally just something else. I didn't expect the gearbox to be like this. So that's 3 that I like. My mistake. Okay, so now we're at that point where I talk about, do I like the car? Would I buy the car? Would I recommend the car? Do I like the car? Definitely. Would I buy the car? Definitely. Would I recommend the car? Definitely. I don't think there's a need for me to speak about why I recommend the car, because the review is basically me telling you guys why you should buy the car. So remember, please do like, comment, and subscribe, because your likes, your comments, your subscription lets me get these cars and I keep giving you guys content. So from South Africa, I'm Nicky Nash and I'm out.